Okay, well, just for Linda's sake, we are using some notes, ABC New Sunday School Class, Basics number 2. And the topic last week was the Almightiness of the Almighty. And
my fire alarm's going off, smoke alarm or some alarm is going off here.
you're going to check it?
Yeah, it's making a lot of noise.
Okay, we can't hear it, but that's okay. Okay, well, we'll wait till Linda gets back for a little summary, but yeah, the Almightiness of the Almighty. We didn't get very far on that last week. We got to the end of the sentence, but we were still awestruck by the Almightiness of the Almighty. And I'm constantly trying to get my head round just how much the Almighty is in control. So yeah, Linda, we were just talking last week and we got through the first sentence. You okay? You're muted, Linda.
I'm going to go ahead and, because I got to take her anyway. This thing's going off again. Don't ask me why, but I'm going to just leave because I got to leave in a couple minutes to take Kara anyway. But I'll see you next week.
Okay. Just make sure there's no fire without that smoke alarm.
No, it's done this a few months ago, and I don't know what it is. It's starting again.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Well,
bye-bye. Good to see you and have you back.
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
So yeah, the Almightiness of the Almighty. To try and think of something that the Almighty is not in control of is difficult. I think sometimes we can ignore his control of the situation, but if we look at any part of our lives, then the Lord is there. How does that affect us from a practical point of view? How does that change our attitude to circumstances, to life, to God himself? How does it change our attitude?
Well, it helps me to trust him. I mean, it gives me it gives me peace when I'm able to settle in, settle down, and settle into peace and remember that he is sovereign. He is the supreme ruler, and he's got everything in his hand. And I don't, but in my flesh, I might be panicky, but when I remember, it helps that panic to settle down, and I'm good,
Yeah. What about let's just say panic or worry or anxiety? Where does that fit into our lives?
Say that again.
Where does worry or anxiety or panic fit into our lives?
It shouldn't be a part of our lives. It shouldn't fit in at all. But I know that it does, for me. Sometimes it's the very first reaction, and I think the enemy tempts me into fear and worry or dread about a certain situation. Yesterday I had to do a Zoom probate court for Bill's will, and I knew that it was going to go well. My attorney had told me, and it was just a matter of formality and it was uncontested, and it was just. But I don't know that I was worried about it. I think I dreaded it more than anything because it was a step that I had to go through, and so all day Monday, it was a PJ day. I was in my PJs all day. But part of that was that my grandchildren had been here for several days, and my sister-in-law had come afterwards, and so I had had people in the house for quite a while, and so it was nice to just be alone and rest. But part of it was some apprehension over this hearing. And fortunately, my attorney called me the night before and went through all the questions with me and assured me that, well, okay, you are of sound mind and you are not a convicted felon. And, so, so it was kind of one of those stupid things that I got all apprehensive about.
Maybe Kate, they found something from way back in the past. And we're going to bring it up.
But it went well, and I am now officially the executor and officially his heir and all that. I'm just waiting for the court to send me my letters so I can trade my car. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah, Jesus told us not to worry about anything, not to have any anxiety about anything.
Yeah.
Because we can't change anything. I'm good at calling it other things. Okay. Concern.
Yes.
And as you say, apprehension. These are all good things to call terror and worry and fear. But yeah, if we're gonna, it's still there, but it's.
You know what though, Alan? I'm comforted to know that Jesus was terrorized too. The night in the garden, he was so terrorized he sweat blood. So
Yep. I don't know how I would classify that emotion. It was extreme.
yes.
Hi, I'm just on a Zoom call. Yeah, I don't know how to classify that. Can you think of anything, any way of describing that in the garden?
Yes, he said, "Your will be done."
Yeah. I think that's the reaction to
Yes.
the correct reaction, response to the possibility of fear or worry or anxiety is your will be done. And if he was ever tempted to be worried about the situation, he chose God's will. It was a choice in his mind.
He knew he was going to be separated from the Father.
Yep. I wonder about that, Kate.
Really?
Yeah, and he knew that he was going to die, and he knew that he was going to be crucified. But I just wonder if, when he was on the cross, that he was there, and this is terrible, and this is painful, and this is awful, and I don't deserve this, and all sorts of things like that might have flashed through his head. But I think perhaps it had it may have, I'm not saying this is true, but it may have been kept from him that he was going to be separated from the Father, and it came on him suddenly as a last, complete catastrophe that was surrounding him at the time. And he may not have been prepared for it, but he endured it.
Yeah.
I don't know. He may have known that he was going to be separated from his Father, but I think, in a sense, I feel that it would have been more effective, if you like, as the ultimate anxiety or ultimate torture or punishment.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
He may not have known, and the punishment came in right at the end, out of the blue, and he was bereft. It couldn't get any worse, and then it did. And he wasn't prepared for it, and he still endured. That's kind of my take on it, if you like. And just as we're talking, I hadn't thought about this before, but just as we're talking, in a sense, if God had prepared him for the separation, it might have been easier for him to endure it. And God didn't make anything easy for him at all. And yet he still endured to the end and beyond, if you like. But that's a view I have, but I've got nothing to back that up. It's just
It happens to us.
Yeah.
We say, well, it can't get any worse, and then it does.
Yeah.
And so, anyway.
But Jesus also said we shouldn't worry about that. When I reflect on the situation, which probably is the worst in my life, and that was the death of a child, it just seemed to go on and on and on, and then it got worse, as you say, and it was indescribable. And on the other hand, God was suffering too, seeing his son going through what he had to go through. So God wasn't doing this out of any malice, if you like. He was suffering too. But the suffering that Jesus went through is unimaginable.
Do you think there's a distinction between suffering and worry and anxiety?
Yes, I do, because Jesus went through it, and I think he didn't worry and wasn't anxious about anything, but he received all that suffering, trusting his Father. And even when his Father withdrew from him, he still trusted. Because suddenly, he's gone. For the first time in his life, he's gone. At the moment that he most needed him, he's gone. Why have you forsaken me? Now, he didn't say God was a bad God for doing it, but he was speechless, if you like. Why have you forsaken me? So I think that the enduring of it is a choice, and the emotions attached to it can be lived or they can be dismissed. None of which is easy.
I'm trying to learn, and I've got a long way to go, that when I get worried or anxious or ho-ha means upset, irritated. It's a lovely Maori word. That it's the canary in the coal mine to remind me to trust. But boy, I've got a long way to go learning it, especially at work. Things are a bit tense at the moment, but yeah, and it's trying to remember that and turn it to God, saying it. I think it's Chuck Missler who said everything we experience is Father filtered. And it's an interesting statement. A typical. I don't know whether he originated it or not. It's a typical Missler statement. That everything we experience is Father filtered. And to remember that whatever I'm going through, God's allowing it, and He knows about it, and He's in it.
Yeah.
And going to Jesus with the separation from the Father, knowing that it's terrible. It's an unimaginably bad situation to be in. We just only catch a little bit of the glimpse of the horror of that for him who knew no sin to become sin on our part, and yet to remember it's Father filtered. It's under God's control and in His plan, and He's not going to let us go, even though we're going through something that's terrible. And it's hard to remember that, and in the midst of our turmoil, our doubts, even to say, okay, God, you're in this, and you may feel distant to me, but you're there, and it's not easy to do.
Yeah. Do we think? I think that Jesus went through that separation for us, so that we didn't have to. I may be wrong on that, but I think we would die if we were separated from God in the same way that Jesus was. We would just, I don't know whether we would implode or explode or just collapse, but I think it would be unimaginable for us, as you say. But Jesus also said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. And I think He meant that too. So it may be that He had to go through that for us, so that we don't have to.
Just
The other
thinking
thing,
out the
sorry, carry on, Kate.
Well, I was just going to say, just think about the times when, I don't know if this has happened to you, it's happened to me, times when God was silent in my life, or I felt away from Him, or that He had departed from me, and you know, I had to understand that it's not the Lord who departed, it's I who departed. And it became a matter of repentance for me. But I mean, there are times when I feel God is silent, and it's easy to make the leap that He's absent too. And that's horrific.
Yeah.
I felt that many times. Why haven't I heard from God? It's probably because I wasn't listening.
And Kim, that's sometimes the case, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes God is silent and wants us to persevere despite the silence, strengthening us in our faith in Him even through the silence. So yeah, there's two things that can happen. I think, not just
Mhm.
and we're sometimes not good listeners. I'm probably not the best listener, but yeah, recently God's been a bit quiet in my life, and I did look around to see if there was anything that needed to be attended to or whatever. I knew he was there, but he was just quiet. And then he spoke, and it was clear. So I didn't get the sense of anything that I may not have been listening, because it's easy not to listen. But yeah, it may just be that God's quiet or silent and wants us to persist with him in it.
Yep.
The other thing that's I don't think we should do, and I think it's how a lot of Christians deal with the problems, like God feeling distant or under terrible trials or stress or whatever, is just deny the existence of them. I think that's a mistake. I think we should live through them and tell God, this is painful. I don't like this. I know you're there, but it's painful. And any other emotions that we feel, I think we should be accepting those from I don't know how to put this, from a human point of view. This is bad stuff happening to me right now. Knowing that God's in control, therefore it's not bad stuff, it's actually good stuff. But it feels bad to us as humans. I don't think we need to deny that. I think we accept it and we say, yeah, Lord, I'm in a bad place here, or I'm suffering, but I know you're in control. And I think that's a reasonable way to deal with it. If we say it's not happening, and everything should be fine and jolly and happy and clappy, I don't think we actually does us any good spiritually at all. I think that there is a place for lament.
I think that's one of the problems I have with some modern aspects of worship, is that we're so slick. And yes, we should be seeking to give our best to God in worship, but we can cover over anxiety and feeling distance from God with this slickness, this of worship, and it can stop us going back to God to say, okay, Father, where are you in this? And we're so busy making a loud noise to the Lord that we miss the realities of connecting. And I think that's a real danger with modern worship of the slickness of it. Now, I understand the need to give God our best, but I think we go beyond that sometimes.
I couldn't agree with you more, Ralph. And I think that question you posed in the middle of all that, which I nearly missed, was to say, where are you in all this, God?
Yeah.
I think that's just such a key question. We need to experience it and yet say, speak to God and say, where are you in all this?
Yeah.
And I think we're allowed to do that, if you like. It's not a cop-out, it's not wishful thinking, it's sincere experience of the situation. And yet, in a sense, I know you're in this, God, I just don't see it yet. Where are you? I think that's such a wonderful question to have at
Yeah.
our disposal.
I had an example of that on Sunday. I had just left my brother's house and was stopped at a red light. And I heard a screech and a bang, and I was knocked into the intersection by a drunk driver.
Oh,
No one was hurt. 2 cars were damaged, and those are replaceable. But I got to thinking, I so far don't see a reason for that. Although the fact that no one was hurt is probably his hand in that. I may never know. But I can't imagine that he was not involved in that. I just don't know what the reason would be.
Maybe the lesson wasn't for you, but for one of the other people.
Could be, could be. And I was protected so that I wouldn't be injured by that lesson.
and as you say, Kim, and I think this is really vital as well. We may never know.
Yep.
God knows, that's plenty. And if he chooses to reveal to you something in it, it's great too. But we may never know.
Yep.
And that really is important. Because that just, we just then have to say, yeah, I trust you, Lord. I don't see you in it, but you know.
Yep. The only reason I heard, which is a humorous answer, was that I was driving my dad's old car, and that he wanted it back.
I don't think he needs it.
Yeah.
So maybe we won't, probably never know.
Has it been totaled, Kim?
It's drivable, but it due to it being a 7-year-old car, it may be totaled.
Yeah. I don't think your dad would be particularly concerned. I can just imagine him going, yeah,
Yeah,
it's just metal.
yep, definitely.
It's now bent metal.
Yeah.
Were the police involved? Was he charged?
I never talked to the other driver. He was never close enough. He was 100 yards away when he stopped, and the police were involved. And so I don't know what happened.
Right. Okay. Well, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been,
Yes.
could have been a bus stop full of kids.
Exactly. A drunk driver can drive head on into a car and cause deaths on both ends.
Yeah.
Having that being the case, we all came out on the good side of this. So again, don't know. Probably won't ever know.
And again, there's a good deal of mileage in being content with that.
Yes.
So, but yeah, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open for God telling you something in it. But yeah, he may not, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, God showing you his faithfulness to you. Even in
Yep.
that.
I hope I learned that lesson. Once is enough.
Yeah, well, yeah. Let's not teach you that every week. So it was your dad's car, and it wasn't. I don't know how many cars you have, but it's none of your cars. So
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That car, I think that it's probably finished.
probably.
Well, that's a good Toyota too.
It was.
Yeah,
It was a 7-year-old Toyota Avalon, which is a nice Toyota. I just gotten it, well, cleaned up, fixed up. And there's a reason. Don't know what it is, but
good. So we're still stuck in this first sentence here. The Almightiness of the Almighty,
yes,
which is good. There's just so much that is worth reflecting on when we think of his almighty acts. And I used to get a bit concerned that I didn't understand why things happened as the way they did, but it's concerning me less and less now. It's up to God to work that one out, and we just have to have faith in him. Have you got the notes on basics number 2 nearby?
Yes, the next section is about the difference between taken away and pruned.
Now, where is that, Kate?
It's at the bottom. It's number 2. I guess.
All right. I was still on the first line of number 1.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay. We haven't looked at Job or
I skipped a lot, didn't I?
yeah.
I read
Although-
ahead today.
Although that's a very good question, taken away and pruned. We'll get to that. I'll just read through the remainder of that first paragraph, if you like. The Almightiness of the Almighty. Our position is that the Lord God is the originator, sustainer, and finisher of all, everything. And there's another topic for vast discussion there. In its fullness expression, it has been put simply this way: everything is an act of God. The failure to see and appreciate this simple fact is an act of rebellion against the Creator. Question: does the Almighty call himself the Almighty because he is all of the might, most of the might, more than most others who have might, more might than the devil, or what? Any thoughts on that? Anything in that paragraph?
well, the all in Almighty sounds like the first one, everything.
Yes.
All of the might.
Yeah. I think that again, that second sentence there, our position is that the Lord God is the originator, sustainer, and finisher of all and everything. And he's almighty. Everything is an act of God. You know, we could get locked up for believing that.
It's true. There are lots of people who say that's heresy.
Yeah. Of course, it is the case. Everything God does in our lives, from the moment we wake in the morning till the moment we wake the following morning, God is in everything. And
Amen.
how do you think we need to live in that knowledge? How should we live knowing that, or believing it, or
Can I
experiencing
just
it.
go back before
Yeah.
we go with that? I agree that God's in control of everything. I'm not so sure that he causes everything. He allows it to happen, but I don't think he's not the cause of sin. He's not the cause of evil. We've got to avoid the issue of fatalism.
Yeah.
And God allows his creatures to have sort of free will, in inverted commas, including Satan. And in the picture with Job, it's Satan that initiated the charges against Job, and God allowed him but limited him. I don't think God caused the death of his 10 children. I don't think God caused the loss of all his livestock and his wealth. God allowed that to happen. And I think there's a subtle difference. It doesn't mean that God isn't in control. It doesn't mean that God is almighty, but he allows his creatures to express their evilness, if you like, their rebellion, their hate of God, even. And he allows that to happen. Like he allowed that person to get drunk, and he allowed that person to not see the stop red light and plow into the back of the car. I don't think God caused that to happen. And I think there's a subtle but important difference between the two. And it doesn't mean that God isn't almighty in that at all. And that's when you go back to that sentence you read, there's a sense in which all of the three statements are right, but they're overridden by the first one, that God is almighty over all. But yes, he's almighty over the devil. That's quite true. He is, absolutely. And he's almighty over everybody else, including Putin and anybody else you want to think about. He's almighty over them. But he doesn't cause Putin to go and invade Ukraine, and he allows them to do it.
I have no argument with that. And the distinction between allowing something to happen and causing it to happen, when both are limited under his direct control, is something I'm not able to discern. I don't know.
I agree with that.
Just like I don't know the reasons why. It would make sense, I guess, to understand why, but I don't know why. And that's okay with me too.
Yes.
And it's why we would ask the question, where are you, God, in all this?
Yeah.
Where are you?
I think I too struggle, Ralph, with the questions you've raised. But I think, and in a sense, it's easy to say I don't understand, and it's easy to say that, you know, God knows more than I do in all this, and allow him to have his way. It's not a satisfactory answer, but we're looking at all these things from a human point of view, and that's where we sometimes get things get a bit tricky for us.
And the act of faith is to say, I don't understand, God, but I'm submitting to you and praising you in the midst of this. If we say, oh, God allowed that to happen, and God caused that to happen, then we can end up with a sort of hard fatalism. And I think that what Kim has said is not hard fatalism. It's like, I don't understand, but I know that God's in control. and
Yeah.
I'm praising him in the midst of what I don't happening, what I don't like.
It certainly, it's beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
And people use that as an excuse not to believe in God, of course. I don't understand him. It would appear that he lets horrible things happen all over the place. Therefore, I don't want to believe in him. I think that it's because we are coming at it from the other side, if you like, of salvation. We see what God has done in the midst of all the chaos since the fall. God has intervened in a way that only he knew how to do in order to rescue a lost humanity, which has been ravaged by sin, goes its own way, doesn't seek God. The Lord stepped in, and Jesus was crucified for us. So we're coming at it from that angle, knowing that that's the only thing he could have done for a fallen world. But the world's still fallen, and it still hasn't changed in how thousands of years people still behave the same way. There is nothing new under the sun. But it's new to people who try to analyze it. It's new to them, and they think they've come up with unanswerable questions, and they have. But the answer is not what they're wanting. They want an end to suffering. They want an end to hunger. They want an end to whatever. And we know that that's not going to happen because there are sinful men and women out there who won't let it happen. And they're doing things which are causing it to happen to their own gain. So, and it's always been that way. And even education, let's take education. Even with people who are more educated, they often just use their education for more gain at other people's loss. They don't use it to improve humanity. That's because they're sinful. But God stepped in with Jesus, broke the bondage of sin, set us free, and we live in him in the midst of what is otherwise chaos. And that's hard at times.
And yet he uses fallen humanity, fallen people, to help redeem the world. You know what I'm saying? He uses us, Jesus in us. He's using me as a fallen creature, a sinful creature, to reach out and to save humanity, to share what he's done in my life, and the power to redeem someone else's life. that he would allow me, involve me, desire for me to comfort and to share life with somebody else. I mean, that's the only, God redeems humanity through our witness, through our testimony. And I think that's why it's so important that I not damage the testimony of Jesus in my life. It's really quite a responsibility, knowing that there are others who are watching me and listening to me, and being careful. Anyway, that's just my thought. He always uses humanity to help redeem the lives of other people. And I say it as often as I can, that the Lord used Bill to redeem my life in ways that no one else could ever have helped me and helped the Lord heal me. He used an imperfect man to help this imperfect woman.
Yeah. It's difficult for us to think like God. And he knows the whole story. We see things from our point of view, whereas he knows everything else. And that's, and I think we should accept our limitations, because they are limitations, and God will reveal to us what we need to know for the next step. But he knows it all. And there are some references to Job in the next paragraph, but just I think you mentioned last week, Ralph, when Job spoke to God, Job was just about ready to tell God that how righteous he was and how he really didn't deserve all this. And but when he saw God face to face, he had no questions for God. The majesty of the Almighty overwhelmed him, and he was speechless basically before God, and had none of his questions answered, because God is not somebody, and this is again can be taken the wrong way as an easy cop-out. God is not somebody who needs to answer your questions. We need to be seeking God and accepting what he has in every situation. It's kind of upside down from where humans come at the problem. I want my questions answered, and God basically turns around and says, I'm the Almighty. That's the answer. And that's tough to take at times, but it's true.
Yeah.
He is the answer, rather than he has the answers.
Amen.
And the first part of listening to that answer is understanding that things happen because he plans it. Not by not random.
Yeah. And we can't understand that.
Yeah.
In a sense, you know,
Yeah.
it's so beyond us. We can't understand that, because if we were planning it, and we were planning all this stuff, it would be from all the wrong motives.
Yeah.
And we're imputing to God human reasoning.
Yeah.
And if
We
you look at it
only
like that,
see we only see with our tunnel vision.
yeah, we're trying to see with God's vision, and most people want God to see with their vision, and when He doesn't, they think He's a bad person.
Yeah.
Hmm.
When you say God's plan, it reminds me of a way that Bill used to pray frequently over someone, over me, over our home, and he would talk about God's plan and purpose for our lives, and that through the power of the Holy Spirit and our cooperation with Spirit, that what God planned and what God purposed would come to pass. And so it's that cooperation. It's our cooperation with our ability to hear and obey and cooperate with the Lord, so that that plan does come to pass. And I know it's a different kind of plan that we're talking about, but I mean, some of the things we're talking about today are calamity.
I'll need to go now, Kate.
Okay.
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 Thanks,
Thank you, Alan.
See you next week.
Okay. Have a good week. God bless you. So some of the God's plan that we've been talking about today have been issues of calamity and pain and suffering, and so I don't know how cooperation fits in with that, but other than trusting the Lord. Go ahead.
But you're still cooperating in the midst of it.
Yes.
And isn't that the key issue?
It's how we learn to overcome and to persevere and endure. All of those, those are fruit of the Spirit, evidence of the power of the Holy Spirit in operating in our lives. So yes, that's cooperating in the midst of it.
Sometimes difficult to do.
Very.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're at the end of our time, and I'm going to stop the recording for